I've been teaching Kathak for the longest time in my life.
Right.
Dance class and dance therapy is very different. Oh wow, spinning movements.
In the sky.
Okay.
And
PK the movie?
the movie.
I think I have.
So I just remembered one of the scene there where just he guides her to few movements. They start with a simple movements and then they just end up with all those. So this was the conversation we had in today's episode with our guest Prajakta Sathi, who is a dance and movement therapist and a Kathak educator. She has been practicing as a dance and movement therapist since last 4 years and teaching Kathak since last 18 years. She runs her own Kathak Institute, Shubhangi Nritya Kala Mandir. So today's episode was a lot of learning for me, and I asked a lot of questions about how dance and movement therapy works and who should opt for it, who can benefit from this kind of therapy. So enjoy the episode. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to Sound Mind.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
So, you started as a classical Kathak educator.
So I established my institute, Shubhangi Nritya Kala Mandir, in 2005.
Okay.
So I've been teaching Kathak for last 19 years.
Oh.
I've been practicing Kathak for last 36 years. Yeah, so into my 20th year now of teaching.
Was it something like a trigger or something at the back of your mind that it happened? So, you thought of pursuing dance and movement therapy, a master's in dance and movement therapy. So, basically, what was the motivation behind it?
Like I told you, I've been teaching Kathak for the longest time in my life.
Right.
And while teaching, I always had a very different outlook towards my teaching techniques and methodologies because I was trained in science, right? So the way I approached the topic was very different, and this was told to me by many of my students who had also probably come from various places where they had learned from some other gurus and had come to me, and they told me that, ma'am, your way of teaching is very different. So I said, thanks to my genetics background, I have found a different way of approaching each topic, and that happens to anyone and everyone who has been trained in science. Plus, long back, I think in 2010 or 11, I had attended this workshop by Tripura Kashyap, who is one of the biggest names in dance movement therapy in India, one of the pioneers of dance movement therapy in India. And at that workshop, wherein it was a 4-day workshop, wherein she trained us into the basics of dance movement therapy. And at that time, it had caught my attention and how, and I was actively searching for, courses which would train me in dance therapy. So, well, all the institutes in India gave either a certificate or a diploma course. And by that time, I had become a mother. So, leaving my infant and going abroad to pursue a master's program wasn't possible. So, I said, let me wait until a master's program is officially announced in India. And that finally happened as soon as the pandemic struck. So, Pune University, in association with Sancheti Healthcare, announced their first master's program in dance movement therapy. They have called it expressive movement therapy, which is one and the same, which is the first master's program in dance therapy, not just in India, but in Asia, which was the first master's program. And they called in for applications from all students from Asia, all people who were aspired to be dance movement therapists. And 15 women from Asia got selected, 15 of us. And we were the first cohort of this masters, the pilot masters program in India. And yeah, so now 15 of us are actively doing our best to spread this fantastic modality.
So, how this dance and movement therapy help to express the emotion, or like how that happens in a non-verbal manner? So, for example, with people from various backgrounds or groups.
Um, See, what happens is, number one, our body is extremely intelligent. Um, all the memories, whether they are, rather than labeling them as good or bad, all the memories, irrespective of what kind of impact they have had on us, traumatic memories, memories wherein you felt ecstasy, memories which have thrown you into melancholy. All these experiences are stored in our soma or our body, and are deep rooted in our right onto our cellular memory. And unknowingly, our body starts responding to the stored memory, and that's how psychosomatic diseases are are manifested or are kind of shown. So when we say that the microcosm and the megacosm, as in the cellular structure and the internal environment of our body, reflects how we appear in our social circuit, and also our relationship with self or with people around us or environment around us, right? So dance movement therapy, um, as a definition, according to American Dance Therapy Association, is the psychotherapeutic use of movement to bring about an integration in the biopsychosocial construct of an individual, which means that there is a sense of balance of body, mind, and spirit, which is facilitated by how the movement is used in the therapeutic sessions. And that is why, in the therapy sessions, I'm sorry. And that is why dance class and dance therapy is very different. Dance is inherently therapeutic, no doubt about it. Whenever you feel extremely low, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling very anxious, and you go for a run, you go for a jog, you go for a walk, or you have a private dance party in your bedroom, you're going to feel nice.
Right.
That's the general bodily response and the release of feel-good hormones. But that's the inherent quality of dance. Dance is inherently therapeutic. However, and learning dance does not gives you many benefits, cognitive benefits, physical benefits, emotional, mental, all those benefits, improves your social interaction. But what happens in a dance movement therapy session is very different, because you categorically look at every case as a unique case, or every group as a very unique group, and meet the clients where they are, looking at their needs, and then working on those needs. And dance therapists are not there to give solutions, but to help clients find solutions through their movements. So that's what I think I can, respond to your question.
Yes. So definitely. So two things I just remembered when you were talking about how dance can be therapeutic even if we have a private dance party. So there was one guest in one of my episodes. She was like, yes, I do have the dance party and just sing along, just like I'm some rock star or superstar or something. And that is actually which rejuvenates her. So now I can actually find the relevance in it. And second thing is about how just have you watched PK by any chance?
PK, the movie?
The movie.
I think I have.
So I just remembered one of the scene there where just he guides her to few movements. They start with a simple movements, and then they just end up with all those uh, fun around in that scene. And then when she was actually feeling so low, and suddenly after some time she just uh, elevates or uplifts her mood. And so what do you think about that scene?
That scene might or might not have inspiration from a dance movement
Answer.
therapy session.
Okay.
Uh, so it will always depend on, of course, guided movement facilitation is always going to help someone more than rather doing something on a whim, right? Because movement exploration may bring welcoming or unwelcoming memories, triggers, responses from your body. And only a facilitator will understand, or a dance movement therapist would understand how to navigate through what is coming up in a session. So, for example, uh, you might have seen several dancers after a dance performance break down, and then some of the dancers feeling extremely empty, some of them feeling extremely relaxed, or some of them going into meditative states. So that is the power of dance and performance that is happening.
Absolutely.
However, that is what they have practiced for and they have trained for, and then it uh, apart from that, when it comes into a dance movement therapy session, and if the movement is guided or observed or being observed under the watchful eye of a trained therapist, then the therapist will be able to navigate and guide the client or the patient onto um, moving through it and push him or her towards um, outcomes that are favorable for the client. I never say positive outcomes. I always say favorable outcomes, because positive is a very,
Subject.
subjective term. Yeah.
So yes, the more like why I asked that question was like, was it somewhere similar to movement therapy? The scene,
No,
no.
no.
So yes, that was my curiosity. Okay.
Because you cannot randomly pick an exercise from a movement therapy session and just throw it in a movie and say that this is something related to movement exploration or somatic release. It
Mm.
might lead to situationally it might lead to it, but then not really.
How, like, were there any time that there's a term in psychology, counter transference, matlab, just as the
Yes, transference and countertransference.
yeah.
Yes.
So when the therapy or the client is having going on and like in having an emotion, and does it reflect and has a effect on you as well as a therapist? And how do you like tackle that? How do you go about it? Does it help you to like plan or strategize the therapy further with that person?
Transference and countertransference is a reality of a therapeutic setting,
Right.
and it is something which uh, shouldn't be a taboo and shouldn't be avoided. It is the reality of counseling and therapy and an ongoing session. How you handle it after it happens, or whether you are aware of it's happening, is what will make the difference between how you will approach, how it will make a segue into how you approach your further sessions. So as a therapist, there are different roles. I am saying in the context of being a dance movement therapist. So being a dance movement therapist, we are supposed to be in multiple roles, right? Apart from being a therapist, sometimes we are also the choreographers. We are sometimes also the teachers. Sometimes we are a witness. At times we are a co-participant because we are also working a lot on mirror neurons and kinesthetic empathy.
Mirror.
So in whichever mirror neurons,
Sorry.
wherein kinesthetically wherein you mirror the movements of your client, and that is how you understand somatically what is happening. Instead of verbally understanding, you kinesthetically and somatically understand what is happening to the client, and then you facilitate or design your movement interventions further, right? So while being in all these roles and switching on to the right roles at the right time in a therapy session, there are going to be moments wherein the therapist can feel overwhelmed by what is happening in the session. So the ideal role of a therapist is to create a safe environment in which the client is supposed to feel free, comfortable, and safe to express himself, herself, itself. But when the therapist fails to, not, I wouldn't say fails, but finds it difficult to be the container for the therapeutic session, either it's ideal to, if at all on if at all it gets difficult to find a navigation through whatever is happening, and if everything gets overwhelming, either there needs to be a temporary break or discontinuation of the session, or handling over the session or the client to some other therapist, or taking a step back, going back to your supervisor, discussing what happened, and then coming back with a fresh new perspective. So whatever we planned on paper before the session and what actually happens in the session might be very different, like,
True.
And we have to be on our toes, not on our toes, but we have to be very responsive and very impromptu into responding and creating resources which the client can use in an ongoing session, because you never know what will come up. And I think transference and counter transference first need to be accepted and addressed, rather than shunning them and saying that no, like this, these things don't happen to me. So address them properly, take them to your supervisor if you cannot handle them, and ideally do take them to your supervisor and have a supervisor, so that everything is taken care of very well. Yeah, so that's how I look at it.
So absolutely a very important point for all the mental health fraternity out there, or the beginners, we can say. Having a supervisor or supervision is really important, which is highlighted a number of times when we are pursuing our masters and also after that. So yes, thank you so much for highlighting that point. So a little about the therapy, dance and movement therapy across the lifespan, like across all the age groups. So, is there particular therapy for children, then adults, and then as you mentioned that you also work in gerontology, the geriatric clinics. So, a little about that.
The premise of dance movement therapy utilizes many allied creative art therapies as well, which is like play therapy, art-based therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, aspects of counseling. Everything goes hand in hand. However, as the population group changes, age-wise, or various sections of the society, gender, all of this, as it changes, then the therapy mode also should change. The modality and how you approach the clients should also change. So I recently I've just finished my course with Connections New York, which is dance and movement therapy for children and adolescents, carried out by my mentor Daniel Frankel, Dr. Daniel Frankel, who created the pioneering living dance, living music, um, a therapeutic framework of dance movement therapy, which utilizes live music and live dance in a dance movement therapy session. So, after studying for that course, I will definitely say that dance movement therapy, uh, though the principles remain the same, how it is applied and what all allied modalities are used, they keep on changing according to what population we are looking at. So if it is children, if it is right from infancy to later age, infancy, kids age, adolescents, teenagers, working professionals, to middle-aged people, to people who are seniors, and palliative care, right up to end of life palliative care. It does change. And geriatrics is something which I personally enjoy working with. Geriatric population is something which I love working with. And my master's project was also with that population. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Okay. So, what are the common things actually which people approach for dance and movement therapy? So, are there any more frequent issues which people face when they approach you?
See, right now, I'm working majorly with corporate clients, wherein corporate wellness programs for various national and overseas banks, wherein, for example, there was the World Happiness Day sometime early in, I think, April. So there were various corporate, offices calling me to have a fun session, a stress relief session for dance movement therapy, with dance movement therapy as the theme. So this is for corporate wellness. But nowadays there are various perinatal groups that are wherein pregnant women are ready to explore dance movement therapy for their wellness, because it kind of gets overwhelming for them. It's first time, and we are in the age of information overload, where everyone is telling something to the would-be
We
mom.
don't know what to believe.
Yes. So plus there is this anxiety about what's in store in the future, and what about the infant that's being born, and the possibilities of so many diagnosed illnesses nowadays evident, right from ASD, autism spectrum disorder, to various learning disabilities. There is so much stress on mothers, even as they are having this beautiful child in their womb, and they are experiencing the journey of motherhood. So many questions, so many moments of you don't understand what I'm going through, is what is the baseline of many mommies to be, which is rightly so, because no one else would understand and imagine what the mother is going to, going through. So pregnancy, the period of pregnancy is what how pregnant women are approaching creative arts therapies is beautiful. They are very open, accepting, welcoming, and that's creating even the dance movement therapists are creating a safe space for this population. Then there is perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal women who are using dance movement therapy really well. Then there is definitely a sector of de-addiction groups, Alcoholic Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, de-addiction groups, substance abuse groups who are using dance movement therapy as a powerful modality for helping them. And of course, geriatric population. In geriatrics also, Parkinson's is something which is Parkinson's is addressed beautifully by dance movement therapists, like Rishikesh Pawar from Pune is working extensively with patients of Parkinson's. And besides this, adolescents and teenagers are also the population that has been taking sessions of dance movement therapy. Yeah.
So, among all these modalities, which area is the most challenging, to deal with and to plan or strategize the therapy?
Uh, it's very case specific, I would say.
Okay.
So no session is a cakewalk because whether it is an individual client or a group therapy session, there are times wherein um, wherein as a therapist also, I have also hit some roadblocks wherein I've said that whether to uh, go ahead with this approach or that approach. So personally, I have loved working with geriatrics. And I have found working with corporates easier, working with geriatrics more satisfying, and working with adolescents most challenging.
Okay.
So I give you all three. So my answer might change in next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. So what was the most memorable, if you can recall, like you can recall a couple of them, the most memorable journeys of people getting healed. I know this must be a process. It won't happen ki the people are coming to you and in the first session itself they are feeling, oh my God, this is so wonderful and I'm healed and I don't need any more therapy. This won't be happening. So how were the memorable success stories? So,
Number one, success is very subjective. So uh, every therapeutic session is one step ahead, or one step, not one step ahead. Some are one step behind, backwards also, because you never know. But every therapy is getting ahead in the journey for both the client as well as the therapist. I remember one of the clients who had initially come to learn Kathak from me, and she wanted to book private sessions with me. And we started with the Kathak journey. But then she became a dance movement therapy client. So what started as a pure Kathak student-teacher relationship got molded into a therapist-client relationship. And then it continued that. Then there was no confusion or to and fro between Kathak and therapy. As soon as we realized that dance movement therapy is what the client needs the most, and thankfully the client also felt so. And then it progressed extremely well. And then she was a client, and until the therapy was weaned off. And I do not have any regrets that she's not a Kathak student, but a happy client now, as a someone who's been a client in the past and has found her calling.
Yeah.
So this is what I remember. Besides that, there are many personal cases within the group of geriatrics also, wherein uh, I have had clients uh, which refused to even move in the first session, and being very skeptical, uh, tad bit sarcastic about what is going on at this age. Would we dance? And by the end of the sessions, uh, those clients have been the leaders of the group, uh, you know, moving so brilliantly, expanding their movement repertoire, having good movement vocabulary at that age, expressing very comfortably in many mediums, exploring things, accepting things so positively, and then coming back to me and giving me the feedback that I was absolutely not sure what was going on in the first session, and I was not convinced that this is going to help me. And I don't want this therapy to stop now. I don't want our sessions to stop. So these are some of the experiences that have happened.
Oh, that's great. And does this happen offline, or like, are you open for, like, is it allowed to have virtual sessions as well?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Virtual sessions are the need of the hour
Yeah,
because
true, absolutely.
thanks to pandemic, it has given us this beautiful gift of being virtually and sharing the virtual space together, and in the comfort of one's home, wherein there are several factors of even many populations not being able to come and travel to an offline space. Having said that, an offline uh, immersive experience is definitely something which is preferred. But I wouldn't say that virtual is any less. So it's really upon the group how well it goes, and there's no set formula to make a session successful. It's so case specific.
We are like having this conversation virtually, so I was just wondering if we can have a simple activity so that, even I am curious, and I know the viewers are also now very much curious about the movement therapy. So, yes, can we have a short activity, whatever we can do right now? So, yes,
Yes, definitely, definitely.
I'm ready.
Yes. So let's kind of warm up our hands. Okay. And place our hands on the skin that is visible to us. If you feel comfortable, that is. Try to feel the warmth of the hands at the accessible parts of your body. And once we're done, you can place the hands on your chest. With 3 inhales and exhales, we are going to try to connect your touch and your breath together. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I want you to repeat. Let's repeat this on the stomach. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And one last time, one hand on the heart and one on the stomach. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. While you're doing this, keep your eyes closed and then try to feel what kind of feeling is coming up within you. Be an observer of that feeling, and then also try to experience where in your body is this feeling being felt. Is it in your upper part, in your lower part of your body? How and where can you feel it? Be with this for another few breaths. And now, I would want you to do a movement that comes naturally to you with this feeling. What would the movement be? You can also choose to open your eyes while you do this movement. What movement do you want to do?
I want to wave.
Please carry on doing this. You want to wave?
Yes.
While doing this, you can also explore using your hands, feet, your neck. I'm sharing the movement with you. Do you want to expand or shrink the movement?
I want to
What are
like
you thinking? Expand?
expand with flying movement.
Okay. Do you want to sit or move?
Yes,
What are you thinking?
I can move. Like I want to move like while sitting.
Okay. What else can you think about with this movement? How does it make you feel?
So it makes me feel so free and as if I am flying, like going up in the sky, flying,
Sky?
rising. Yes, rising.
In the sky.
Yes.
Can you reach out to the sky and try a few movements in the sky?
Yes, like I'm imagining the sun rays coming across the clouds, and then I just want to feel it on my face, the sun rays.
Okay. The sun
The
rays are
warm.
going straight.
Yes.
What, the sun rays are bright? Okay.
No, they are
Warm.
like warm.
Warm,
Very
lovely.
soothing, warm enough to enjoy.
Fantastic. So, now the warmth of the sunlight and the coolness of the clouds, what does it make you feel?
More free and relaxed, I can say, soothing.
Can you get the clouds? Can you move up and get the clouds around you? Can
Yes.
you do that?
Yes.
Okay, so that your
It's
hands are not
More
always
of
out.
like a swimming also. When I'm like I'm flying, I feel that I'm making the swimming movements and swimming in the sky.
Oh wow, swimming movements.
In the sky.
Okay.
And
Mhm. Okay.
just like in the
Lovely.
fairy tales. So I'm feeling like one of the fairies.
Okay. So what this movement of your arms going around, Do you feel any kind of tension or pain in your arms?
Yes, a little bit of in my
Yes,
shoulders.
little bit. Okay, so you can relax and you can have your body also move if at all you're in the swimming. This you can have your eyes and the body and keep imagining that you are across. What else can you see as you're moving, as you're swimming in the
Sky.
clouds? Sky. What color is the sky?
So, yes, there's a number of shades which I can explore since I can see the sunlight also, then the clouds, so a little bit of a tinge of a blue sky blue colored shade, then a golden brown texture coming from the sun. So the sun rays are so straight, and yes, I can see them also, I can feel them. So yes.
And are they okay to your eyes or are they too bright?
No, they are very soothing and like very okay.
Lovely. In the warmth.
In the
Okay.
warm, yeah.
Nice.
Okay. I can
So-
actually see the sun as well with my eyes.
Oh, wow. And do you want to bask in the sunlight for some more time?
Yes.
Okay, lovely.
I feel like also going ahead and touching the sun right now,
Go
actually.
ahead, please go ahead and touch the sun. It is fine.
Okay.
It is accessible to us right now.
Okay.
Can you go near?
Yes.
Is it in your access to touch?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not in like not whole in not in my reach like absolutely, but yes. And
You
then
can be in the aura of the sun,
yeah,
closest to
all
is
over.
what-
Yes.
all over. And what in the body can you feel? Is it warmer than it was before, or is it colder?
Yes, it is a little bit warmer.
Warmer. Okay. Okay. So, do you want to stay there, or can you come back? It's okay.
Can stay there, yes, absolutely.
Lovely, lovely. So, as you stay there, please, I would want you to soak in everything and see what it's feeling in your body. What difference are you feeling in your body? Being in that atmosphere, the surrounding of the sky, the clouds, the sun, the warmth, the freedom, the colors, right? And when you come back, because we also have to kind of give it a
Yes.
closure, right? I want you to again touch the accessible parts of your body. And whichever is comfortable to you, heart, stomach, or one heart on one stomach, one hand on, and 3 deep breaths. You can come back to the room. At this point, I always ask the participant to write down what is it in the heart that they feel, what is it in the body that they feel, and what is in the mind that they feel.
We really enjoyed the activity, and thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, yes, a little about, your personal experience with how while dealing with all the clients and then also working in the corporate setup, and also like you are a classical educator as well as a dance and movement therapist. So how are you able to balance all these things, like your personal life, then being an educator, and then also a therapist? So any few insights on a work life balance?
Um, so being a Kathak educator, I would definitely mention that pursuing dance movement therapy made me a better Kathak educator. Because now I look at my students not just as students but as as humans with some psychology background that I have in a very different way. So if I may say so, I'm a better Kathak educator because of my dance therapy now. It has brought in a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, a lot of patience into my teaching. And with respect to balance, I think basically uh, I love dance. I and I love science. And both these fields are something which I am absolutely passionate about. And what I've found is that at the end of the day, where I have taught the entire day, physically I might be tired. Emotionally also, because while teaching and also while in therapy, as a therapist, you are in a hyper vigilant mode because you are very alert as a teacher. You are very alert and aware as a therapist. So even if there is body and mind exhaustion, there is a sense of extreme satisfaction uh, at the end of the day. And I look forward to getting up every day and doing what I do and to go for work. So, plus, I also make sure that I give enough time to myself and for the things that I love to do. Uh, Being creative, I besides the usual work of going for various concerts that I love because I'm a classical dancer, right? So I go and watch various concerts of artists, of contemporaries, um, doing my riyaz as a performer. Then writing every day, journaling every day, or finding various opportunities. For example, starting mini projects like um, I recently quilted my own blanket with needle and thread, and I found it extremely therapeutic. Uh, and I started with putting some music and I started to stitch the blanket. But later I even stopped that music, and it was so therapeutic. And then after that, I read some excellent research and articles about needlework and embroidery and how it is being used in therapy. Then I love singing, so I've spent so many evenings putting up the karaoke and singing
Great.
singing my favorite songs. So meeting loved ones, spending time with them, um, creating new things, whether it is blogging. And this is not under work pressure. This is something which I want to do because there are so many modes of expression around us. And if you are an artist, uh, you are blessed with multiple modes of expression. So if you like writing also, if you like singing also, if you like going and watching plays also, there are so many ways in which you can practice self-care. Uh, Booking regular massage sessions for myself because vagus nerve activation is something which we are talking about in mental health care sector. Um, so and I'm not a very people's person. I'm not an extrovert. So understanding that too many social gatherings will exhaust me, knowing that taking intermittent breaks and not scheduling too many social gatherings. Work is different, but making sure that I get my downtime and I get my solitude, making sure that I rest well, going for walks is what helps me.
So yes, this is what this is how I just wanted to wrap up this beautiful session, and it has been and more than an hour, and I really loved the conversation we had, and thank you so much for being here and giving your precious time.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. I enjoyed having this conversation with you.